We're today having a look at the dual sports of dual sports, the Suzuki Dr 650 SE from 1999, and we're going to see how well this bike holds up in 2025, and with that, welcome back to the Free Miles MC. First of all, this motorcycle comes with a 644cc air-cooled and oil-cooled engine that's producing 43.5 horsepower and 54 newton meters of torque that is combined with a 5-gear transmission, and all this in this very light dual sport frame. The bike weighs 166 kilos and has a suspension travel in the front and rear of 259 millimeters. So as it stands here, it's quite a good package for riding on the road and off the beaten path, and this is also quite a nice base for a travel bike, as proven by my subscriber who's provided the motorcycle to me, Richard from Sweden. He's on his trip to Morocco, and he just stopped by where I live, which is really nice of him. Like, what made you decide for the Suzuki Dr 650 SE?
When I started driving or riding motorcycles like 3 years ago, I had no clue what I really wanted. Like, off-road didn't really speak to me. So I got something in between, which was the Suzuki 650 Freewind. And that's basically like almost the same chassis and exactly the same engine, just a bit more horsepower.
Yeah.
And it turned out like I usually rode more off-road than on-road. And I noticed that I need something a bit more suitable, I would say.
Yeah.
And so I got the 800 GS, but I noticed that like it's too heavy for me, and I found the DR and I found it perfect. Like, it was so light, it was torque enough, like it's perfect for me. And also this bike has taught me everything when it comes to like mechanical work. 3 years ago I had no idea how this thing worked, but now like I can do this in my sleep.
That's actually something that's really nice about this bike as well, as it's pretty easy to work on, and we're going to have a look at that, as this bike has a slight problem with its carburetors. But first, let's take this bike for a spin on the road and then see how much this can deliver off the beaten path. So before we get going, let's have a look at the seat height of this machine. This motorcycle has a seat height of 88.5 centimeters, and this is a really nice in-between point between a really capable off-road machine and, like, it's low for a very capable off-road machine but high for a road bike. And this is how that looks on my frame. For context, I am 6'5" or 1.95 meters, and I can flat foot the bike very comfortably. I mean, obviously it's kind of height related, but it's very comfortable to sit on, and we just rode the bike out of Hanover here over the highway, and it's quite the comfortable riding position, and you can sit for quite a long time on this bike, and also in traffic and on the highway. So let's take this thing for a spin. Let's go. So we're now getting the Suzuki Dr 650 on the road, and yeah, it has quite the sound. It makes all the one-cylinder popping sounds and so on, as you just heard. And on the road it has a pretty utilitarian feel. Feels like you're a farmer going to look over the fields basically. But even with quite the amount of suspension travel, it feels still like rideable on the road, most definitely. And the one cylinder definitely has a lot of torque, like it really gets going. Yeah, and on the side of the tire, it's of course a dual sport. You feel it's off-road orientated, but it still does it relatively fine. Like, I still would say you can have a good time with this on the road. I think what can be said about the road performance of the Dr 650 is that it does everything sufficient. Like, you can handle the road definitely fine enough, and the 280 front brake disc does a fine job. And it's a single disc, but like with 166 kilos, that's really doable. And the engine is definitely torquey and fun enough for this type of riding. with the big 21-inch front wheel, of course you feel the bike needing some directions to then lead into the turn, but it does it fine. And also, like, you don't have a rev meter or anything, you just have this one dash right here. It feels very raw and unfiltered, and it really, even though this bike is from 1999, it feels very much like the really like old enduros. From the character that the bike has when riding it and twisting the throttle, it can be very well compared to something like the Honda XL 500 or the Yamaha XT 500. Like, it has a similar big enduro bike feel, and it starts growing on you swinging the bike from side to side, most definitely. Like leaning the bike underneath you and then into the other direction. Yeah, this is nice. This is pretty fun, honestly. So the thing is, the DR650 also handles some more interesting stuff like this pretty well. And through the water, whoop! Like, the 26.5 centimeter ground clearance really helps a lot here on this old left behind BMX track. And this is of course also where the 259 millimeters of suspension travel then really shine. And of course, with this height, also the breakover angle of this motorbike is fairly impressive. I'm a bit too scared to fully give the bike a jump, as it's not my own motorcycle and I don't want to crash Richard's motorbike that he still has to do a trip with. So the bike really handles also the rougher stuff, like these up and down sections here with little jumps, like really fine. The DR650 is in that regard a really good and fun machine. The suspension really does its work here well, even if the tire kicks a bit away because of a rut in the forest. With the 21-inch front wheel, you have an easy way of finding your way again. Like, you can have a nice lean back position going through this here. Also carry some speed, occasionally get some lift. Also, I got to say, the shift lever is pretty accessible when standing on the bike, which is really often not that much the case. Well, you can still shift very nicely at the same time when being on road. One thing here, you can very easily maneuver the bike. Like, the 166 kilos are no problem to, even if you're on an incline, to kind of move backward a bit and forward again. Also here on softer sand, like here, doing some more technical stuff, really works well. Also here going over these kind of things, like no issue. Yeah, and even here going over like a rut like this. But as you've maybe been hearing from the slight popping noises that the exhaust has been making, something is not 100% right with the carburetors. And this bike is actually also pretty easy to work on. So let's get to the garage and open up the carburetor and fix this motorcycle actually in this video, so it runs nicely for Richard to continue his trip to Morocco. So we're right now here home at the garage, and Richard will get the tank off its bike to get to the carburetor, because there's an issue with the carburetor that the motorbike does these weird popping noises as the mixture is just too rich and something doesn't seem to be right with the different jets of the carburetors, and we will look into that now.
inside the slider here there's like a notch which I made onto the needle here. The problem is that like when I accelerate, this needle tends to like jump up on that, which gives me like 2 more millimeters of height, which really affects the fuel mixture. So I'm probably gonna remove this area here and lower the needle to increase the air ratio. So there's a small ledge down here, and the difference it makes is that either the needle goes this far or it goes, hold on, slightly further down like this, and those 2 millimeters makes a lot of difference because it's like exponentially increasing the ratio. So yeah, we're gonna measure how far the needle goes down in the ideal position and then correct that up here.
Yeah, Richard is about to test ride the bike now without a tank, just with the fuel and the carb. See how that goes. So let's wrap this video up while Richard is still behind me fixing the last few bits on the bike to continue his way to Morocco. And all in all, I have to say the Suzuki DR650 SE is a brilliant platform, and some of the best things about the bike are also the worst things at the same time. For example, we just worked quite a lot on the carburetor and it took some time to get it right, a few test rides, and quite annoying. It's already dark now, and something like this is also part of owning this bike. It's very easy to fix yourself and cheap to fix, but you will be fixing it often, especially with like older technology like a carburetor, especially for a bike that's almost from the 2000s. But apart from that, and wherever you stand on that issue, this is a brilliant bike, and it's a brilliant dual sport and enduro, especially for when you tend to be more off-road focused with your riding than road focused, but still want to occasionally take the bike on road. And it does this really fine. It's so fun to ride. You just have a great time riding this machine. The suspension does a great job. It really handles all the bumps very well. You can do some more intense stuff, most definitely, but you could also theoretically travel the world on the bike, and you can very comfortably sit on the highway. You can tour through the city and like use it as a commuter. It's a great can-do-it-all bike. These bikes tend to go for 2,500 to 5,000 euros here in Europe. They're a bit less common here in Europe compared to the US, but you still get parts and everything very easily, and it's all a very good experience. I like a few things very much about the bike. For example, that it has a translucent tank, so you can see how much fuel is in the bike just from seeing the tank. Also, you have great like customization options with like bigger tanks that look like the old Dakar rally tanks, and all this kind of stuff is available for this machine. And also just the simplicity of it with just this one dash and like nothing else, and you having this very raw enduro experience that bikes from the 1980s started to give you. And this is basically the last one of them that really delivers on this, but like the suspension and everything delivers. It really delivers so well that I would say that this is the best dual sport you can get for the money. And I think this is also a great pick for someone who is looking for an adventure bike and doesn't want to go the whole fuel injected route, who says, oh yeah, carburetor, I can fix that everywhere. That's basically the perfect bike for you. Just keep in mind, you're going to be fixing that thing everywhere. And with that, thanks for watching. If you have a motorcycle that you would like me to review, definitely feel free to write me an email, and like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. And thanks to Richard for making all the drone shots in this video, because he was basically operating his own drone, as I don't have a drone myself, and it made the video a lot better. So definitely all the love for Richard in the comments, and see you guys next time.